All right, well, welcome everybody. We are very glad to have you come and join us again for our webinar this morning, specifically focused on propositions. Um, the election is fast approaching, and it's in fact our ballots are going to start getting mailed out next week. So it will be time to start working on submitting your application, your ballot. It is a long ballot, has a lot of things on it. It's 4 pages front and back. I was on a website earlier this week. You can actually go on right now and print out or look at a sample ballot. If you go to your voter registration information, you can actually access a sample ballot of yours. It's pretty daunting, but we are smart people. We are committed people. We can do this. So we're not going to let that big old ballot, we're not going to let it intimidate us or scare us. We're just going to take a deep breath and we're going to fill it out. So thank you for being here to get some help with that. And as the next few days, next few weeks go by, we'll be around to help. So if you get overwhelmed, you just reach out to Francisca, to myself, to Jay. We will be happy to walk you through it. You can open your ballot. If you're afraid to touch it, bring it in and we'll help you open it. And we can see what's on it. So thanks for being here. Did I miss anything, you guys, before we get started?
And we have Solveig with us today.
Oh, I got it. Thank you. Because I'm supposed to also, I even wrote this down. So thank you. We also are very excited to have Solveig with us. So some of you may not have met Solveig. Solveig Muse works for Lutheran Advocacy Ministry Arizona. It's part of the Lutheran Synod, the Grand Canyon Synod of the Lutheran Church, of which we are affiliated. And she is the director of that Lutheran Advocacy Ministry. Some of you may have, if you went to the day at the legislature this last year, you may have met Solveig at that time. But she's with us today because Lutheran Advocacy Ministry Arizona, one of our partners, I'm on the policy council. We have taken a stand for and against some of the propositions, and she'll be sharing that information with you today, as well as Lutheran Social Services has taken a position against one of the propositions. So we'll be sharing that information with you. So you'll be hearing from Solveig, Francisca, and Jay as we go along. And is Christina on?
I don't see her on yet. So if
there she is. She's on. So Christina, I also want to introduce you. Are you able to come off camera? Come on camera, Christina?
Yeah, my camera's on. Is it not on?
I don't know. Oh, now I see her.
Oh, there you are.
There you are. We couldn't see you, Christina.
Okay. Well, I want to introduce Christina as well. Christina Medina. You may not have met her yet. She is an intern working with us this year from the School of Social Work, and we are delighted to have her with us. And she did a lot of research on the propositions. So I'm going to turn it over now to the four of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connie. I'm going to share my screen so that we can get the PowerPoint started. If there are any questions at any point, feel free to interrupt, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to put it in the chat. You can email us after, whatever way you feel comfortable interacting with us and asking questions. We welcome questions. If we don't know it, we'll help you figure it out. I'm just going to say that up front. I'm going to be sharing the slideshow, so if Francisca and Christina can help me, if someone does raise a hand, I might not be able to see it. So just tell me to stop for a second. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
I can see it on my side.
All right. The 2024 ballot propositions. Here we go. So first off, as Connie said, thank you so much for being here. We understand that it can be a stressful time. We're hearing a lot of things on TV, on the radio. I don't know about you, but I'm getting multiple text messages a week from folks. So it can get a little bit overwhelming, a little bit stressful. And sometimes we hear things about the propositions or candidates, and we're like, I don't really know. So it's okay to not know all the answers. You joining this webinar shows that you care, you want to learn, And that's awesome. So give yourself a pat on the back. We got this. It's going to be good. And we got this. Briefly, some important dates to just remind you of. Monday, this Monday, last day to register before the general election. If you have gotten married since you last registered and your last name has changed, if you've moved, you need to update your registration. And then on the 9th, the ballots are going to be in the mail, so we're going to start getting them. The 25th is the last day to request an early ballot. The 29th is the last day to get your ballot back in the mail. If you miss that date, you'll have to drop it off at a location. And November 5th is election day. Very briefly, okay, what is a proposition again? Let's just review quickly. A proposition is a policy that is being referred to us, the voters, to decide on instead of going through the legislative process. So normally a law goes through the legislative process and the governor signs it into law. A proposition is us making that decision via voting. So this year there are 13 propositions that made it to the ballot. And so those are what's going to be on our ballot. Those are what we are going to be deciding if those can become law. How does a proposition get on the ballot? There's one of two ways. Either the legislators can work to pass a piece of legislation through the chambers to get to the governor's desk, and then she either signs it or vetoes it. Sorry, I got sidetracked here. So they can work to pass a piece of legislation through the chambers, and to get on the ballot bypasses the governor's signature. Okay. So if they're trying to get a proposition on the ballot, it goes through the chambers, does not go through to the governor. Or citizens like you and I can propose an idea. We can go through the process. We can collect signatures, and then we can get a proposition on the ballot. So those two ways. Oops. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to explain a few. Francisca is going to explain a few. Christina and Solveig. If at any point you have a question, if something's not making sense, just let us know. The first one we're going to talk about is Proposition 134, Signature Distribution Requirement. So what this proposition is saying is that if you want to get a measure on the ballot, you have to get signatures from each of the 30 districts. So if Jay wants to get a proposition on the ballot, I would have to go out to each of the 30 districts and get a percentage of the qualified voters. As it stands right now, I would only have to get a percentage statewide. So if I needed to get 10% of the people that are voting, I could go to the Maricopa County and collect that percentage. This would change it so that I'd have to go to each district. I'm just going to go briefly into what those in favor say and then what those against it say. And then Solveig is going to add some input as well because Lama took a position on this one. Those that are in favor of this say that it would improve voter involvement by requiring signatures to be collected from all 30 districts, ensuring statewide representation. Those in favor also say that urban and rural areas would have more of a say, and that would prevent any single populous region from dominating the process. Those in favor also say that more than half the states already use this approach. Those in favor also say that it mirrors the principle of geographical representation, similar to how each state has 2 senators. Those in favor also say that it promotes equal representation across Arizona by encouraging citizens from all areas to participate. Solveig, do you want to talk a little bit about why Lama is opposed to it? And then if you don't hit on any of the dot points that I have, I'll just add them.
Sure. Lama took a position in opposition in this case because we feel if there's a overwhelming majority of the population of Arizona that are in favor of something, it wouldn't necessarily get on the ballot if you can't get a approximate amount of the required amount of signatures from every single district. So it requires a lot more person to person to person to person, driving around every single district, needing to be represented. If even one, you can't get them all, get enough signatures in the door, then the whole thing falls apart. So it felt like to us the weight should be in favor of the majority of the population.
Awesome. Thank you, Solveig.
Yeah.
So adding on to what Solveig said, it would those opposed say that it would significantly increase the cost of gathering signatures, making grassroots efforts more difficult and potentially shifting the power to wealthy special interest groups. It could undermine the citizen initiative process, making it harder, like Solveig said, for everyday Arizonans to bring issues to the ballot. And then those opposed say that voting no would keep the process accessible and reflective of all voters, like Solveig was saying. Are there any questions on this one before I move on to the next one? Okay. Uh-oh. There we go. Proposition 139, the fundamental right to abortion. This creates a fundamental right to abortion in the state constitution. It limits the state's ability to interfere with the right before fetal viability. And then after fetal viability, abortions would be allowed when necessary to protect the life or health of the pregnant individual. It prohibits laws penalizing a person for assisting an individual obtaining an abortion. Those in favor of this say that it enshrines the right to abortion in the Constitution, thereby safeguarding an individual's privacy and autonomy over reproductive health decisions. Those in favor also say that by defining fetal viability and conditions for abortion, the measure aligns with medical standards and reduces legal ambiguity for those licensed to provide health care. And then it would expand abortion care statewide. Those in favor say that it acts as a promise to women and families that they're empowered to make their own decisions about their healthcare decisions. And it's a promise to medical professionals that they are trusted to make the best recommendations. Those in favor also say that it better reflects the diversity of religious beliefs around when life begins. Those opposed to this measure say that allows for the termination of pregnancies, which some consider to be the taking of human life. Those opposed say that patient safety may be jeopardized by allowing healthcare professionals or other individuals not licensed to provide reproductive health care and abortion services. Those opposed also say that it may harm vulnerable patients by prohibiting prosecution of those who aid or assist in getting an abortion. And it might enable undue influence on minors or vulnerable people. And those opposed also say that the amendment could increase abortions and remove parental notification and consent for minors. And it could leave parents uninformed and girls without support. Any questions on that one?
Okay, looks like
Hold on,
someone,
there is somebody in the chat.
in the question, the chat. Gino asks, would 139 is somewhat in line with Roe versus Wade?
Yeah, so those in favor say that it restores the reproductive freedoms that Arizona had before Roe versus Wade. So those in favor would say that. Does that answer your question, Gino?
Jay, this is Susan.
Yes,
So
it does.
Yeah, Susan, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So the reproductive freedoms before Roe versus Wade or during Roe versus Wade?
Before it was overturned. It restores
before
the
it was
reproductive.
overturned.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? Okay. Good. Keep the questions coming. We like questions. All right. Proposition 315, ratification of rule that increased regulatory costs. This one has a lot of words, so I'm going to try to simplify it a little bit. Right now, if a state agency is proposing a rule It has to go through several different steps before it takes effect. It has to go through a bipartisan administrative rules oversight committee, a lot of words. And it also goes through the governor's regulatory review council. What this proposition is proposing is essentially that another layer be added onto that. So it would go through all those steps, and then it would also go through the legislature. So the legislature would have to ratify the proposed rules. As this is talking about there, it applies to if it increases regulatory costs by more than 500,000 within 5 years. So when I think about it, I just think that, okay, it's adding another step that the legislature would now be involved. Those in favor say that costly regulations can hurt small businesses and families, and this measure allows elected representatives to review and stop unnecessary regulations before they go into effect. It says that it would shift power from unelected bureaucrats to lawmakers, ensuring that major regulations are subject to oversight instead of being implemented unchecked. Those in favor say that it does not affect inexpensive or emergency regulations, so that public health and safety protections would remain intact. And it says it promotes transparency and accountability by involving elected representatives in the rulemaking process. Those who are opposed say that regulatory agencies have subject matter experts that are already reviewing these things that legislators would lack, and that this would bring politics into decisions that should be based on informed expert knowledge. Those opposed also say that adding legislative reviews could worsen existing delays, as they say legislators are already behind on some of their oversight duties. Those that oppose it also say that it would interfere with an agency's ability to manage resources and address urgent issues, which could lead to reduced service quality for Arizonans. And finally, those opposed say that it already has strong mechanisms in place, including what I listed, the governor's review panel and the bipartisan administrative review. And so it could potentially block public health and safety regulations by being bogged down in the system. Any questions on that one? Proposition 312. This is the only proposition that LSS, as an organization through our board of directors, has decided to take a position on. So Proposition 312, LSS is opposed to this proposition. What this proposition does is that property owners can apply for a tax refund for expenses incurred due to what they see as a governing authority's failure to enforce certain public nuisance laws on or near their property. So essentially, if there are individuals experiencing homelessness on or near someone's property, and they feel that their property value has gone down, or they have had expenses incurred due to individuals being near the area, they can apply to not pay their property taxes. Why is LSS opposed to it? Essentially, LSS believes it's bad policy. It's not going to benefit the community, its businesses, or taxpayers. Rather, if the cities are losing tax revenue because they have to go through litigation of these, or people aren't paying back their property taxes, it could reduce the resources that are needed to address and help individuals experiencing homelessness. LSS believes that the enforcement of this could be difficult and costly, and also that it's minimizing the dignity and respect that all people deserve. LSS also understands this is a multifaceted issue. Everyone deserves to feel safe. They deserve to feel safe operating their business. We all deserve to feel safe in our homes with a sense of peace and security. And we also affirm that all people, regardless of their housing status, have value and are worthy of respect. Are there questions on this one? All right, if there are no questions, I'm going to hand it off to Francisca, who is going to be explaining the next 4 propositions. Francisca?
The next 3, guys, sorry for my voice, but you guys are lucky you get to get the graspy voice this morning. Well, we are not here to tell you, of course, what to vote or how to vote. We're here as coming together as a community to share some knowledge that is out there from multiple sources. And I'm going to follow the League of Women voter guide because I think it makes sense to me. So I encourage you to, if you don't have it, we can send it to you in order for you to take more time to review, to read, it, and to also to get more knowledge in these propositions that they are lengthy. Okay, in the 135, the proposition 135, I'm going to read. This proposition that impacts the powers of the governor. There are 2 propositions that impact the powers of the governor and state agencies. One is the 135 and one is the 315 that Jay just mentioned. So in the 135, I'm just gonna look at it really quickly, and I encourage you to get your download this because it's a proposed amendment to the Constitution. There are different propositions, and this one will amend our Constitution by the legislature related to the governor. We're talking about it will change the Article 4, Part 2, Section 1 of the Arizona Constitution, amending Article 5, Section 4, Constitution of Arizona relating to governor. What I'm saying is this. The reason why I'm saying this is because this is a serious proposition when you talk about the Constitution. So I want all of us to be very watchful and mindful and do some personal research before we vote on something that can change our Constitution, the Constitution of our state. So those that vote yes, that they're in favor of this, it says it allows for emergency declaration to respond to legitimate emergencies, but automatically terminates 30 days after the date they were declared, unless extended by the legislature with majority vote. Okay, I'm gonna go back a little bit because this I did not share with you the bulk of the matter. It says this proposition 135 terminates governor's emergency powers, except for powers relating to war, fire, or flood 30 days after the governor's proclamation, unless extended by the legislature. Requires the governors to call a special session upon presentment of a petition signed by at least 1/3 of the members of the legislature. So you guys hear already me saying those in favor said also that the legislature can call a special session with just 1/3 of its members, allowing swift action to modify or terminate emergency declaration. Those opposed of this measure, of this proposition, say delays caused by waiting for the legislature to approve extensions could worsen crisis, preventing timely and effective responses. Also, those opposing this says that Arizona already has a law limiting public health emergencies to 120 days without legislative approval. making Proposition 135 additional restrictions redundant and counterproductive. So there are several lists of this. I will highly recommend for you guys to look at it because there are multiple layers to this. So let's move to the next one. If you guys have any questions, we can talk a little bit more. The Proposition 136. This one, I'm going to go back to the guide. Like, I highly recommend this. This proposition will impact citizens' initiative powers, okay? And I'm just gonna wrote this out. When you talk about the proposed amendment to the Constitution, this is another one that will change our Constitution. So I'm very, like I said, when we have a constitution that is in place, we need to pay attention closely. So I recommend get the guide. So by the legislature relating to ballot measures, amending Article 4, Part 1, Section 1, Constitution of the Arizona relating to ballot measures. What 136 proposition says, authorizes a person to bring a lawsuit to try to stop a voter proposed initiative from being placed on the ballot if that person sues at least 100 days before an election and claims the voter proposed initiative would violate the United States Constitution or the Arizona Constitution. Am I missing anybody? Did anybody is on the chat that I'm missing? And I do believe that Lama has a position on this 136, and I really believe that they should go and talk about this because they have a position, and then if anything is left, we can talk about it.
Well, I think you did great, Francisca. I would just say that Lama opposed this bill because we feel that it would pose barriers to accessible, easy election participation, right? So customarily, you have the courts would not offer kind of a constitutional rulings until after a policy was voted on. This would provide the option for suits to be brought before it even gets to the voters and sort of stop it in the middle. So even if it was a sort of, say, a citizen initiative that everybody wanted to be able to vote on, this could prohibit the voice of the citizenry, if you will, and kind of disrupt the process before it even begins. So that's why we are opposed to it. We want to make sure that the most possible voices of the citizens are heard through voting.
Proposition, anybody has any questions? And once again, we can send you this guy. Is in Spanish and in English. I really I cannot tell you how helpful this is. And this guy from the League of Women Voters is actually helping me personally. So when we go to Proposition 137, this proposition will impact the judiciary, courts, and law enforcement. There are three propositions that will impact this. That is the 137, the 313, and the 314. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Proposition 137. And I cannot tell you how helpful this guide is. I mean, I was with the League of Women Voters yesterday with one of them, and I really like this guide. The 137 says it's a proposed amendment, again, to the Arizona Constitution by the legislature relating to the Judicial Department, amending Article 6, Section 4, 9, 12, 37, 38, 39, 41, and 42, Constitution of Arizona relating to judicial department. So when I see the Constitution, I always pay attention. So I will read to you guys. Eliminates judicial terms and regulatory retention elections and nullifies the result of the 2024 judicial retention elections for Arizona Supreme Court justice, Court of Appeals judges, and Superior Court judges in counties with over 250,000 persons. Allows such as justice and judges to hold office during good behavior until age 70. Okay? So voters, the people that are in favor say that voters should not decide which judges should step down. It should be left up to experts. Those in favor say judges should have lifetime appointments unless they engage in egregiously bad behavior. Those in favor say deciding to keep or reject 80 judges every 2 years is ineffective and a waste of time and taxpayer money. Having 80 judges on the ballot delays election results. The majority of ballot errors occur in the judges section. Okay, those opposed says this measure is retroactive, meaning that if passes, any judges voted out in the November election, in the upcoming election, will still be retained. Those that oppose 137 says a retention vote with term limits is the people's way of ensuring that our powerful government official judges are accountable for their actions. And it goes a little bit longer. So also those opposed said that the bad behavior list does not include criteria such as public perception of unfairness, lack of impartiality, lack of thoughtful, fact-based ruling, patterns of unprofessional or unethical behavior or conflict of interest. Ultimately, the Chief Justice makes the final determination. So even bad behavior does not guarantee that a judge will be dismissed. So I will recommend once again, we can send you the guide, reach out. Please, there are several important pieces, important propositions that will change, voted in, will change our constitution, our most precious documents for our beautiful state. So be watchful and mindful of all those changes that are being proposed. And if you guys have any question, I know that Lama has more to say on this.
Well, yeah, if you're like me, it's a big fat pain to vote on judges, right? There's a lot of work that goes into figuring out which judges yes, which judges no. There's a lot of them, and you may have nothing. You may feel like you know nothing about the judges and that you don't belong in this space. But Lama opposes this because we believe that citizens do belong in this space and that citizens should still be able to vote. If this passes, we feel that it removes the citizens' option to vote for the judges. And for those of you who wonder how in the world to do this, the Arizona Commission on Judicial Performance Review, or the JPR, does have a performance review that you can check on the judges. Also, when I do this, I call my friends. I call folks that I know are in the legal space. My next door neighbor happens to be used to work in the public defender's office. So I would ask around, say who to keep, who not to keep. It's still worth it to us. Lama believes that we get to be involved in the process of who our judges are going to be. And as we've seen, all the way up to the Supreme Court, the judges are trending towards being more political one way or another than they used to be. And so I think this is one of the reasons the Lamas decided to take a position on this, that we want to make sure that we still have a voice in our judges.
And I think that's key. I think what the last few words that you said, that our judges are veering more politically than they are what they're there for, and that's what makes it really difficult to understand, not having term limits for them.
Thank you for that, Gino. Francisco, were you going to take this one, or do you want me to take this one?
Oh, you can take that one.
Okay. So Proposition 313, pretty straightforward. It would require that a person convicted of a child trafficking offense be sentenced to imprisonment for natural life, and they wouldn't be eligible for any form of release. So life in prison for that offense. Those in favor say that right now sentences can be reduced through plea deals or good behavior, and this mandates that they would have a life sentence. Those in favor say that child sex trafficking subjects children to years of physical, emotional, psychological abuse, and increasing penalties can ensure that perpetrators face severe consequences. Those in favor say that the community has a duty to protect its most vulnerable members, particularly children. Those in favor say that it aligns with the growing national movement to combat human trafficking. And those in favor also say that it reinforces Arizona's stance against child sex trafficking, ensuring that criminals are held accountable. Those opposed say that it's taking away the judicial discretion, shifting power to prosecutors to decide whether a case warrants the mandatory life sentence, and it undermines the role of judges. Those opposed also say that victims of trafficking, who are often coerced into criminal activity, could be unfairly subjected to life sentences by removing judicial discretion to consider these individual circumstances. Those opposed say that it's a simplistic and emotional reaction rather than a well thought out, evidence-based solution, neglecting the intricacies of sex trafficking and child exploitation. Those opposed also say that there are existing severe punishments that already provide long sentences for these crimes, and that research suggests that increasing penalties does not significantly deter crime, as offenders don't often consider the penalties when they're committing the offenses. And finally, those opposed say that rather than an emotional or sensationalized approach, we need comprehensive education, prevention programs, and a fact-based legislative response to these to protect children. Any questions on that at all? All right, I know we're coming close on time here. I'm going to pass over to Christina, who's going to explain the next three. If there's any questions, feel free to keep asking.
Hi, everyone. I kind of just wanted to start off by emphasizing and thanking Jay and Francisco for doing those wonderful explanations. And I just want to emphasize Francisco's point, as we're here collectively to just inform you guys about the propositions. We're not telling you guys how to vote, but just to be informed. And the key to voting is to be an informed voter. So for Proposition 314, this was a proposition that was referred to the state statute by the Arizona legislature. So the name for it is the Arizona Immigration and Border Law Enforcement Measure. So this states that it makes it a crime for persons without lawful status in the United States to submit false information in applications for public benefits and employment and enter or remain in the country under certain circumstances. They also do have an additional layer to this proposition, that it makes it a crime to sell fentanyl, and there's going to be charges for people that they find that they are selling the fentanyl. So if a vote yes for this proposition will make it a state crime for non-citizens to enter the state at any location other than the port of entry. So this means that anyone that enters the country unlawful would be a crime. And this one also states that state and local police can arrest non-citizens who cross the border, and if they are like they're like suspected of being a non-citizen, they can go ahead and arrest them on the spot. This also allows for state judges to order deportations. And this kind of goes into affecting our social services because with this proposition, it will use e-verification to determine immigration status of the enrollment in financial aid or public welfare program. So this e-verification, if a lot of people are not aware with this, e-verification is used by certain employers to verify your citizenship. Right now, there is no e-verification process to apply for like SNAP, access, anything like that. But if this proposition does go in effect, it will automatically use that e-verification program no matter who is applying, and it will check to see that citizen status. And also a vote yes to this proposition will make it a class 6 felony for individuals who submit the false information and are detected by the e-verification. And just kind of going on to the fentanyl clause, if someone was arrested and they had fentanyl and it caused a death of another person, this will make it a class 2 felony. So this proposition, kind of just some insight. A lot of people are relating this proposition to SB 270. I'm not sure if you guys are aware with that, but this was a proposition implemented by Joe Arpaio that was ruled unconstitutional back, I believe it was like 2000. I'm not sure of the date, but it was ruled unconstitutional. And the writers who wrote SB 270, some of the writers are writers of this proposition. So a lot of them, a lot of people are relating it to SB 270 and they're making it known. And the people that oppose it um, are saying that they want to go ahead and provide lawful law enforcement with the necessary authority to combat human trafficking, drug smuggling, and other illegal activities at the border. So those are what people in favor say. So they want to go ahead and pass this proposition to strengthen overall security. They also want to have lax border policies that have led to, because these they want to implement a policy that is going to minimize illegal crossings and create opportunities for cartels to find cartels that are smuggling the fentanyl. And I know that Solvi did want to add some insight on this, so I'm going to go ahead and pass that over to her unless anybody has some questions for me.
I just had a comment on that. To me, it just seems like the issue here is immigration, but the scare tactic of fentanyl makes it kind of look like everybody that has an immigration issue is a dealer. And that's why this bothers me, because they just add pork to something like this, and it makes no sense whatsoever.
I'm with you on that, Gino. I agree.
Yeah. And just kind of going off Gino's point, we are gonna go ahead and send some information afterwards after we do finish the webinar. But these propositions on the sample ballot, we can go ahead and attach that on the email as well. These are very long propositions. What we're saying right now, they're condensed to like 1 to 2 sentences, but the propositions that are submitted are more than 2 sentences. So kind of like how Gino's mentioning, they use certain language to kind of use, like they have another kind of agenda to the proposition. But again, we are here to just inform you guys about the propositions. And if anybody doesn't have any questions, I can go ahead
I, I
and
think I think the thing though here is to just again to say is they label fentanyl to immigration, and so they're tagging people in this population as like I said, dealers or mules or whatever, and they use it as a scare tactic. People think that that's what everybody does when they come into this country.
Solveig, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think Christina and others have done a great job here. What I wanted to mention is that we're particularly at LAMA are particularly concerned with the part of the bill concerning SNAP and other government benefits. Prop 314 would create an additional state crime that prohibits a natural person who is not lawfully present in the U.S. from knowingly submitting false documentation when applying for a federal, state, or local public benefit. The crime would be a Class 6 felony. In order to verify the validity of the applicant's documents and eligibility for benefits, the agency or political subdivision of this state that administers the benefits would be required to use the federal government's verification program called E-Verify. And E-Verify is already used by employers to ensure that their employees are U.S. citizens. It's already mandated that only U.S. citizens and some other legal residents, like refugees and asylum seekers, can receive SNAP benefits. And the application process requires proof of citizenship. There's significant concern that creating a new state crime will cause a significant amount of fear, especially among families of mixed immigration status. And because of the felony level penalty, many people will be discouraged from applying for the benefits that they need, even if their families qualify for assistance. And as a reminder, currently more than 900,000 people in Arizona receive SNAP benefits, and food insecurity has increased from approximately 10% to over 13% in the last year. So from the caring for our citizens, as people of faith, we are called upon to love and serve our neighbor, and our neighbor means everybody, right? All God's children. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
When you use the number, the 900 that are using SNAP, that's a mixed population, not necessarily immigrations only. So that number represents Black, white, any nationality. Is that be correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you, Solveig. That was a wonderful addition to that proposition.
Yeah.
And the next proposition that we are going to go ahead and look at is Proposition 138. This is Wages for Tip Workers Amendment. This was proposed also by the legislature to our constitutional amendment. So a vote yes to the Proposition 138 will allow tipped workers to be paid 25% less per hour than the minimum wage if any tips received by the employee were not less than the minimum wage plus $2 for all worked hours. So basically, employers will be able to pay tipped workers 25% less than the minimum wage if they can make a if they can go ahead and show that the tips that they earn is equal to the hours that they worked. So this will decrease people that are in favor for this say that it is fair because it balances the differential between tipped workers who receive additional income from tips and non-tipped workers who are not eligible for tips. But those opposed says that it disregards local economic needs and strips communities of the power to set local wage laws. Those in favor voting yes to this proposition credit that it will help businesses retain workers and reduce costs to consumers. So this is more of a businesses want this because it will benefit them. And those opposed would say that it would widen the gap between tipped and non-tipped workers, increasing poverty for tipped employees. So as we all know, people who do work on tips are getting paid the minimum wage, and this will decrease it by 25% less per hour. And those opposed would say that this would increase poverty rates from everyone in the community who works in the tip workers. And then if no one has any questions, I'm gonna go ahead and move through Proposition 311, which was referred by the legislator relating to first responders. So this proposition requires the state to pay $250,000 to the surviving spouse or children of a first responder killed in the line of duty. This also establishes an additional supplemental benefit fund, which will be gathered from the penalty fee on the person who is getting the criminal conviction. So this increases the punishments for aggravated assaults against first responders. So for this proposition, those in favor say that our first responders have an important and difficult job and must know that their community supports them. This measure shows our support and provides them peace of mind, knowing that their families will be taken care of when the worst can happen. Those opposed to say to that extreme expands the definition of a first responder beyond accepted understanding. So are correction officers and first inspectors truly exposed to the same unpredictable hazards as police officers? Such vague and broad definitions invite confusion, abuse, and injustice. Another individuals that are in favor say that police officers and other first responders are facing increasing violence. So as they're doing their job, they're experiencing more violence. And those against it say that the vague definition of killed in the line of duty invites the confusion about eligibility and reduces accountability for the use of death benefit funds. So in short, this proposition will allow first responders to get that additional $250,000 to their spouse or children, and also add in a conviction for the individuals that did that like that crime against the first responders. And I know, Francisca, I know that you wanted to add a little bit on this, or I don't if okay. So if anyone does anyone have any questions regarding the conviction fee for first responder death?
Thanks, Christina. I do want to recognize that we are going over time. So for those of you who have to hop off, we will have, this is being recorded, so we'll send it out to folks. We have 2 more propositions to go through, so we'll be here for a little bit longer, but I just wanted to be respectful and let everybody know that you'll get a copy of this recording and you'll get the resources that we are referring to when we're helping explain the for and against sides to these. I'm going to invite Solveig to help explain these next 2. So Solveig, I don't know if you want to start. I can supplement in if there's any points I need to add, but if you want to start with Proposition 133.
Sure, appreciate it. And yes, please do pop in as you hear it. And with your permission, I'd like to sort of talk about both of them together, right? Sure. For shorthand purposes, you could think of Prop 133 as partisan primaries and Prop 140 as open primaries. You could think of Prop 133 as ballot as legislative referral, and Prop 140 as citizen initiative. You could think of Prop 133 as opposed to RCV ranked choice voting, and 140 as allowing for the possibility of future ranked choice voting. So sort of in a nutshell, 133 requires that direct primary election for any partisan office allow each political party to nominate the same number of candidates for the office as the number of positions to be filled. So the idea here is that there are 5 recognized parties in Arizona, right? And of course you know all this, but I'm going to say that there are Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, no labels, and Green, right? So the what we call independents are not an actual party. The independents are what we call unaffiliated or other, right? But interestingly enough, in Arizona, registered Republicans are 35.4% of the vote, and other or unaffiliated are 33.9%. So really close, right? Followed then by Democrats at 29 points. So the idea here is that we would continue the primary, the partisan primaries, because that would allow, people in favor of this say that it would continue to allow all parties to be represented on the ballot, right? This came to the ballot as a legislative referral because of a veto of a bill that Governor Hobbs vetoing a similar bill. This is essentially trying to make sure that Arizona will never have ranked choice voting, and ranked choice voting means that citizens vote for them, essentially would be able to vote for the most popular regardless of what political party they come from, right? So, you know, if you're if you're an independent, let's say, if you want to vote in a primary, you have to designate yourself as a Democrat or as a Republican or as a Green Party candidate to be able to vote in a primary. Historically, our elections are decided in the primary. So if you're an other or an independent, you don't even get a ballot, right? You don't even get a ballot mailed to you. So the only way to get a ballot if you're an independent is to pick a party and then unaffiliate yourself from it to go back to being independent. So folks who are in favor of this say, well, this allows at least the opportunity for all parties to be recognized. If there's one state office open for a senator, let's say, you'll get one person from each of the parties to be on the ballot. I think to me, that's one of the most significant things. 140, the citizen initiative, is in favor of this opportunity for an open primary where everybody gets a ballot and everybody gets to vote. And this is the reason that it would have more opportunities for more people to vote. And this is why LAMA is in favor of this bill, because we feel that more opportunities for more people to have their voices heard is what we're in favor of here, right? It seeks 140 eliminates partisan primaries and replaces them with an electoral system in which individuals may vote for the candidate of their choice, regardless of party affiliation. LAMA supports this initiative because it seeks to make participation in the election process easier for more people. Open primaries result in higher voter turnout. Candidates are more likely to reach out to voters, and overall, civic engagement grows when the electoral process is accessible, right? So LAMA is opposed to 133 and is in favor of 140. But interestingly enough, there are a lot of people that are against both. For example, the League of Women Voters is opposed to both of these, and they have very good stated reasons. They have said that 140 would be a confusing system and that it disenfranchises voters. LAMA believes that 140 and others who are in favor of it believe that it enfranchises voters, right? So it's a sticky wicket. Those opposed say that 140 would be costly because election officials from all 15 counties would need all new equipment and will need to design a new ballot style for every election cycle. But what 140 allows for is the possibility of ranked choice voting in the future. Interestingly enough, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon are all deciding on measures of selection to adopt the ranked choice voting. Voters in DC will also decide on a ballot initiative to establish RCV. In Alaska, where you may know that RCV has been in effect, their voters are, it was adopted in 2020, their voters are going to the polls to consider repealing RCV. Missouri voters will decide on a constitutional amendment that will preempt RCV. So this is the possibility of what ranked choice voting might look like in the future. And I don't want to run, it's already 12, so I don't want to run on too long. I know lots of people have questions, and Jay, why don't you jump in here?
No, that was great, Solveig. Thank you so
No.
much. Does anybody have any questions?
One of the concerns about 140 that people have raised is that it goes back to the legislature. So let's just say that there are 10 people that there are all on the ballot. The legislature can determine who will actually go on the ballot. So it's a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 5 people. So it may be that that the top 5 vote getters were all Republicans, right? And all Republicans could be on the ballot. And so, 133 ensures that somebody representing every party will be on it. 140 ensures that the most popular people will be on the ballot.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Very interesting, a little bit confusing. So if anyone else is a little confused, it's okay. I get a little confused. Yeah, but thank you so much, Solveig, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Sure. Somebody like League of Women Voters is opposed to both of these initiatives, right? Holding out for, they're in favor of ranked choice voting, but they're not sure that 140 will guarantee that there will be. They're concerned that the legislature will have the final say in who gets to be on the ballot. And that, of course, plays into this fear about who's controlling the legislature. The ultimate in partisan politics, right?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Does anybody have any questions that they are brave enough to ask? If not, you can always email me or Francisca or Christina, whoever you feel comfortable emailing, and we'll try to answer the best we can. But any other questions before I turn over to Connie and close out?
I just wanted to share very quick. The guide that we have from the League of Women Voters is very partial. It does not, it's just it's for information. So we're going to be sharing, right, Jay? You're going to send also the voter guide from Llama and everything that we have to everybody that attended, right?
Yes, we'll be sending the recording, what we were referring to, like Francisca was just saying, Llama's voter guide, and then Christina's also working on another little guide. So you will be getting more resources probably Monday.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you all for. Yeah, I'm going to close you out because it's 12 o'clock. Everybody's hungry, needs to get moving. Thank you so much for being here today, and more to come. Remember, October 7th, it's coming up. You need to be registered if you haven't done so. We are here to help. Also, watch for more communication. We want, when you get your ballot, we want to help you to be brave enough to open it. And if you have any questions about it, we're going to be setting up some time where we're available. Francisca is committed and is also, as you know, speaks Spanish. So we can talk to people in the language in which they are comfortable, as long as it's Spanish. I'm not sure you're very good at Farsi yet, Francisca, but we'll try to make sure that you are supported as you're entering into the most sacred of opportunity we have, being a democracy. This is an important election. Thank you all to be prepared, and happy voting.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Solveig.
Thank you.
You bet.
Bye.